Hello, listeners. This is the Risky Planner Podcast. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey, Albert.
Hey, Nate.
Nice to see you again.
You too, buddy.
Yeah, you've been busy.
Yeah.
Going here and there, to and fro. Like, you just got out of your car and came in from the garage, right?
Yeah, I was. We were doing our usual prep for this record. I was sitting in my own garage in my car, just waiting for a break in the conversation so I could come up here and sit next to my actual microphone.
Dodging moose and, I don't know, Canada geese or whatever is up in Calgary.
It's mostly geese. There's plenty of those out there right now.
No mooses.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Well, today's a special episode.
Yeah.
It is. You know why?
Tell the people why.
This is the first episode that we are welcoming a guest. So, welcome Roger Bradfield, our first guest.
Hey, thanks, Nate.
Now, please dial back the enthusiasm just a little bit, Roger. I mean,
you know me, quiet,
yippee!
Restrained.
Yeah, he's not the yippee type. That's
no,
for sure.
He's not. But he's perfect for this show. But yeah, you know what? Roger has also been busy. Like, you guys are busy. What are you busy with?
I mean, for myself, travel. Just came back from a week's engagement with a client. Next week, go out to have another week's engagement with the same client in a different location.
So, in maybe a sunny tropical location?
Oh, yes. If you
That's
can
hilarious.
Call,
like
Toronto sunny and tropical, it's better than Calgary at the moment.
Hey. Toronto's beautiful right now.
Well, anything's tropical compared to Calgary right now, honestly. Like we're getting Seattle weather right now, and Seattle's getting our weather, and Toronto's getting Florida's weather, and Florida's probably getting South America's weather. I don't even know what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I was on LinkedIn sort of prepping for this and just looking at some of the comments on some of the project management groups, right? Like, you can tell when AI is posting and then AI is commenting back on the AI, and it's just a conversation full of AI. And so as I was doing research,
your framing is a little off. That's not it's a
exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's just all noise. Like, it's lost to me. I couldn't, like, I'm trying to prepare for this, looking for like real comments, and I got none. Nothing.
Roger and I were both we're both taking steps into actually trying to care about our online presence, from a professional perspective. Like, Roger has a bit of a following for his risk posts. I have a bit of a following for my, I guess, news analysis posts. And it's so danged unfortunate that the rise of Roger and Albert on LinkedIn also corresponds with the rise of AI. And like every third post is an AI thing.
On another topic, I got some good feedback from a friend on our show, actually, and he is a movie producer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
He produced the documentary on the Tragically Hip. That's on that's streaming right now. Yeah, big time.
I must have missed that one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're American, right? Like, it's not,
yeah, I know.
But I know people, they watched it and they cried. But he was like, yeah, your production value is pretty good. We got 3 listeners out there.
Well, we're doing a lot with, we have more than 3 listeners. I know. Well, honestly, so like one of the things I was doing last week,
Dave across the street, what's
your
up,
friend,
Dave?
Yeah.
Roger, maybe.
I don't, Roger, do you listen to the show?
I hesitate to say yes because I haven't listened to all of them.
Oh my God.
Awesome.
I have listened to some though. So
that's
don't
lovely.
ask
As long as you're a subscriber and you're downloading them all, that's all that really matters.
Yeah, that's all that we need.
So,
just go like and subscribe. So I want to let's get into it. We're working on programs, we're working in PMOs, and we see shortcomings and do, new work with clients. And so we're going to talk about some of that, like, innovation, right?
Some of that big idea stuff.
Right? Yeah. Albert, maybe just set the stage a little bit. Like, what are we talking about exactly?
Yeah, sure. So you started me off really strong there when you said, like, we're working at the PMO level, because that's, we've talked before about what a PMO is and what a program is and when it makes sense to start sharing resources amongst like groups of projects that have something in common, like that share a common strategic objective. And that is basically what I just said is a slightly sloppy but accurate definition of what a program actually is. It's just a group of related projects. And our latest, like the things that have kept Roger and me so busy lately, are mostly programs, right? Like we're being asked by our clients to do schedule analyses and cost estimates and risk analyses and things on programs, right? And part of the reason why we wanted to have Roger on this particular episode is because we have been running up against the same challenge that a lot of consultants in our field run up against, which is that if you want to do a project level risk analysis, for example, there's lots and lots of standards for you to follow, right? They're all out there. There's a whole bunch. It's just within the ring fence of the AACE, there's like, 6 of that are like totally different ways of doing risk estimation on your projects. The number of RPs and like formal guidance documents, things like that in the AACE for how to do program level risk, 0. There are none.
And just for our listeners that might not be, what is an RP?
Roger, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so RPs are recommended practices put together by the AAC to give people like myself and Albert strenuous guidelines about how things should be done. They're developed over frequently multiple years by some real clever folk over at AACE who spend a lot of time getting peer reviews and making sure that the processes that they're putting together have been industry tested.
And we kind of, like, you say projects, Albert, and like programs, like basically everything is a program, right? I mean, and
a lot of things are,
right?
Yeah.
You can't really, I mean, even when you say you work on projects, it's really a program. It's so complex.
It depends. Well, that's it, right? Because there are some projects that are pretty simple, right? There's no reason to programify projects that sit below a certain size or complexity class, like what that class is. Well, it depends on the organization. But the fact is that, once you get above a certain size range, like if you can call your thing a mega project, there's a pretty good chance that it would be pretty easy to subdivide into sub projects, and secretly you're actually working on a program, right? So in the 500 million plus range is a pretty good bet that you're working on a program. Anything below that's a toss up, but still, those are the kinds of
500 million. It
on.
seems like pocket change sometimes nowadays with like the
right.
projects
in the world
that are
of
getting
$1 trillion companies and.
Well, I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, like isn't like globally, there's like $106 trillion worth of, that are being thrown at projects over the next like 5 to 10 years. It's just insane.
That sounds like a big number. I haven't done my own research on that one.
Yeah, there's certainly plenty of money being thrown around at projects and programs.
And we know also that the bigger they get, the less well they tend to do on cost and schedule performance. Like mega projects are amongst the poorest performers, historically in terms of delivering on their cost and schedule commitments. So, I think a big part of that reason personally, like this is something that should probably be studied more, but I may not be the exactly correct person to do that. But like,
I have a book for you if that's what you're interested in.
Well, I'd love to read this book.
Yeah, I think you already have.
Okay. Oh, that one. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, this is how big things get done. We love this book.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is that I think that one of the drivers for poor performance on mega projects may very well be that they are actually programs, right? That have not been structured and estimated as programs, where, if you assume that it's all project, then you are going to underestimate the number of interfaces between your sub projects. You're going to assume that people are marching in the same direction, singing from the same hymnal, when they're not, right? And that could potentially be a real problem when it comes time to actually go execute. Like if your estimating basis was, I have a very big project, but in reality you have a program of very big projects, then you've missed something, like guaranteed, right?
So this is not really like a new sort of epiphany, to borrow your hymn, reference. This is not a new epiphany. Like where did this start? Like, well, actually, I have 2 questions. So we are doing some interesting things with several clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess 2 is sort of where did you kind of have your aha moment about sort of this is the new approach. This is how we could innovate with our clients.
Well, I can think of a specific point, like a specific client where I kind of ran up against this issue of there not being a good way to roll up risk impacted dollars.
Okay,
right?
yeah, tell us that
Like,
story.
I can think of that for sure. And Roger, while I'm talking, I bet you can find one somewhere in your memory banks.
Dig deep.
There's a 50-50. We're about to hit the same one as well.
It's very possible. So back in the day, I was the schedule and risk manager for the capital projects mission at Canadian Nuclear Laboratories, right?
Okay.
So I wasn't so much on the execution side as I was on the management side. Like I was attempting to help our project schedulers and their risk professionals, right, to develop sensible estimates for cost and schedule on projects and to manage them, right? So a lot of what I was doing was coming up with governance and attempting to apply it and reporting standards and things like that. And that meant that the roll-ups for all of the reports flowed through me. So I had to generate cost reports and schedule reports and funding reports and those sorts of things that were aggregating everything. And a lot of that was done for me because, it's a big interconnected system, lots of, tools at their disposal. But one thing that wasn't rolling up was risk impacted dollars, right? So they maintained a separate fund for program level management reserve, which, spoiler alert, is something that we recommend in the paper that we wrote for the AACE. But anyway, so they did do that, right? But how big should that fund be, right? When we're dealing with a bunch of projects that all kind of share a common goal, again, a program, right? And you're trying to roll up risk impacted dollars, there's not that many ways to do it. So like me and another guy, a guy called Yaroslav, like we were working together to try to solve this problem. And we came up with some things that kind of were like a proto version of what Roger and I came up with. And by the way, I don't want to represent that Roger and I were the only two people working on this. Like we have our lead author actually is Rachel Fleming, who works for MBP Consulting. She's their risk service manager and is a very, very capable risk manager and estimator and has some papers under her belt already. So she probably has a moment like this too. But when we eventually like hammered out because the problem we were trying to solve was when you add probabilistic dollars to probabilistic dollars, 1 + 1 does not equal 2, right? It depends on a lot of factors. And I'm actually not the right person to talk about that. Like Roger knows more about this than I do, but like,
well, who was driving, like you talked about you guys trying to solve this problem, like who was driving that sort of desire to solve that? Like how was it a problem, and like who was saying, hey, somebody should solve this? Was this a conversation that was happening?
Well, like a lot of complex problems, it stems from a very simple question, which is like we do project level funding at the P50 level. We do program and portfolio level funding at the P80 level. Okay, easy enough to say. So if you are the client, then you ask a very simple question at the monthly progress review meeting of like, oh, well, how have you guys generated a P80 value for your program yet?
So there was a moment in a meeting that somebody asked that question and the room was like, we don't know.
Well, it wasn't so much like, it was more like, oh, we'll take that away. We'll give you an answer next month.
That's what we did. More right? Executive thing to say.
That's what you say, right? Like when you're in one of those meetings, that's what you say.
Yeah. Let me go find that number for you.
Yeah. Well, and finding the number turned into inventing methods for estimating the number because we very, very quickly realized that when you roll up those probabilistic values, it's a bit hairy. So Roger, can you say more on that?
Without going deep into the math, it's usually easy just to see it by example.
How so?
If you do the modeling exercise from scratch, this is something that anybody who's run a QRA before will find. You do one set of models, you do another set of models, you bring the pair of them together, and where you think your 500,000 here and 500,000 there is going to equal to 1 million, and it never does. And you always sit in a room and someone says, but why? And unfortunately the answer is usually that's just the way probability works. It's an outcome of the Monte Carlo process. And as I say, I mean,
I think there's a relatively clean answer as to why, though.
I'm just trying to remember what the the proper math answer for it is.
Oh, well, screw the math.
Roger, like you've worked on so many projects, right? Like you've got some, I'm going to put you on the spot. You got some war stories. Like maybe tell us a story about where this kind of situation like went off the tracks without naming names. I think it'd just be interesting for our listeners, like to kind of get a little bit of insight into your experience and why this is so important.
Yeah, my realization of a requirement is a little different from Albert's, because it was never driven by a client saying, we need to understand an answer. It was driven by, as a lot of things in my life, by my own curiosity. So you end up doing work for a client that involves a number of projects that happen to sit in a portfolio or a program of works, and you're trying to come up with, well, how do we find the number that best represents it, understanding that 1 + 1 does not equal 2, certainly not in the risk world, and what valuation you should be putting forward. And whilst going back to the earlier comments, it's very easy to find information on how to run a QRA. This is not a challenge. There is software, there are guidances, there's plenty of people who will tell you how to do it. But then you ask someone, well, how do you set this value? And it's the classic thing of ask 10 people, get 10 different answers. No one was doing it the same way. Most people weren't really doing it at all. They were doing it in a far more simplistic and additive fashion of, we're just going to gather up all the P80s, throw them in a bucket, and call it good.
And that starts to fall on its face when the individual projects that you're working on have, cash values in the billions, right?
Yeah.
So because when you add all those P80s together, because like if the deterministic value of your project is $1 billion and the P50 value is $1.25 billion, there's a pretty fair bet that the P80 value is $1.4, $1.5 billion.
Did everybody follow that? I'm just like listeners. I hope you're staying along with the math.
It could be a further, if it could be a further 25% of your determinist of your base budget, right? So it could be it could be anything. Also, it's driven by the actual.
I wish
risk.
Mortgages worked like this. I'm just saying. Or
I bet
no,
you
I wish
don't.
they worked in that my
The other
favor
way.
like this. Yeah, sorry, that's not the right way.
No,
Actually,
it's okay.
so I do want to, because Albert, going back to when you introduced Rachel, who's going to be presenting with you and Roger at AACE, like I know that you and Rachel had a conversation at last year's AACE that sort of sparked this. Did you not? Like, can you kind of take us back to that conversation? I think that would be really cool to talk about here.
Yeah, sure. So Rachel and I met after. So she presented a paper last year about selecting amongst the many project level methods, like selecting the best method for doing program level risk assessment. So I was definitely 100% going to go see that presentation because it's something that I had been thinking about ever since this thing that I had to solve this with CNL, because it's been sitting in the back of my mind. Like that's what sparked my curiosity. Roger got there organically. I really wanted to see what somebody who had like done the research, like done her homework, came up with for that, right? And the paper was very well researched and gave some very useful conclusions about how you would pick from amongst the different project level risk assessment methodologies to do certain things at the program level. But what it didn't do is say, and oh, by the way, you've got a program on your hands. Here's how you estimate the value for it. Didn't say that, right? So it was basically like, oh, you want to do a risk assessment. Here's how you should do it. It's like, okay, but like what happens to the numbers that you generate, right? Like where do they go and how do you add them together? And like none of that stuff was addressed. So we had some side conversations and I asked her like straight up, like, did you guys think about going down this road? And she was like, yes, but we same thing that Roger and I were talking about earlier. There's nothing in the literature about how you're actually supposed to do it. So we got to talking, and over the course of 2 or 3 days, like we ran into each other multiple times, and every time we had both been like noodling on it in our spare time and had more to add to the conversation. And we eventually decided, you know what, let's just do it. Let's just try to come up with a framework. Let's hammer one out, because we had some like rough ideas on the day, right? And then we, on my side, I engaged Roger because I knew he'd have some ideas about how to do the mathy bits. And indeed he did. So between the two of us, we worked out a lot of the mathy bits. Rachel made sure that we weren't skiing too far off piste, and also did the literature review for us, which was hugely beneficial because it validated the core idea of the paper, which is that no one's actually out there telling projects and program teams how to do this.
So you wrote a paper and you're going to be presenting it, right?
We did. Yeah. So the paper we ended up writing, first thing we had to do, of course, was pull together an abstract, which means that we had to have some idea of what it was that we were actually going to write. So the three of us, Roger, Rachel, and I, we got together. We pulled the abstract together. It's a combination of a literature review, a conceptual model, and the actual framework itself. It eventually got assigned number 4852. So in AACE parlance, it's going to be conference paper risk-4852, and the title is Contingency Management Framework for Multi-Project Programs.
Boom.
Riveting stuff.
Boom.
Yeah. Yeah. A real page turner.
Mic drop.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but this paper is like a summation of a bunch of innovation that, like, your conversation with Rachel, stuff that we're doing with client. I mean, there's lots of like trial and error, and pushing.
Yeah, I mean, and this is in many ways just the first step, right? Like you're absolutely right that, between Roger, Rachel, and myself, we've had to solve these problems practically before, and we're not unique in that respect. Like lots and lots of risk practitioners out there have tried to solve these problems to varying degrees of success. Many people have run program level risk assessments up until now. It's not like they were waiting for us to come up with a framework in order to do it. So we're trying to make things easier and like give some kind of guidance and direction to some standardization so that people can start testing in real world scenarios, like how well does this work? And like, does this save time? Like, does it enhance the risk management paradigm across the program? Like that's the main reason for releasing the paper about it, is throwing it over the fence to the rest of the risk community, and giving them an opportunity to contribute to the dialogue and share those experiences. Because right now it's limited to the two of us plus Rachel.
Right, because it is a community effort. No, I get it.
100%.
I get it. Yeah.
Like those very smart people that Roger referred to earlier who write the AACE RPs, they're members of the AACE. Like the AACE does not have a standards writing body. Like they lean on their membership for that. So if this paper, and by the way, we've shared bits of it to groups of, like we spoke, all three of us, I believe, at the AACE Power Forum in April. Just last week, I presented the technical elements of this paper. And by the way, Roger, thank you for feeding me the information I needed to not sound like an idiot when I spoke at the Safran Summit.
I'm sure you'd have managed without, but...
That was very helpful. Yeah. It did help apparently, because people really dug their teeth in, like to this on the technical side of things. Like there seems to be a hunger here for this. And like every place where we've had these conversations amongst technical people, people really want this. And like they want some guidance, and they want to be proven that there is a better way. Right.
Yeah. I think the presentation that I attended where you, presented to the AACE like members, there was so much engagement afterwards about like, hey, did you consider this? Or like, are you doing this? Or what about this other thing? And like there's lots of kind of technical debate and discussion. So it was pretty interesting to see just the community kind of coming together over something, like this. There is a real hunger.
There is. And if you just go tell Joe Blow off the street to go read Risk 4852 Contingency Management Framework for Multi-Project Programs, they'll probably throw a slice of pizza in your face.
Like, who benefits from this and how?
Do you have any thoughts on that, Raj?
So it's a bit of a challenging question. The most positive benefit I could see coming from this is it sets the conversation going down a particular path. And if enough people get interested, which, as Albert's intimated, there certainly seems to be a hunger for it, then, this framework or something very similar to it will be tried, and people will try it in real world space and put it in front of their clients, and hopefully we'll be able to get some results back from more than just the people that we deal with. And from there, you hopefully, you build it out and say, well, okay, it works really well. It's great. And then that gets converted over time to an RP, and then everybody in AACE and all the people who reference their RPs gets the benefit of having a structure that is considered a standard. That then means that, you know, when you go along to an organization and say, this is the framework we're gonna put in front and we're gonna use, it has validity. So, you know, you can then, the client can then take it to their management or their clients and say, hey, look, this is the number we came up with. It's based on this. It's backed up by research. It's recommended by the AACE.
And that's a really important point, because project organization, the AACE really is a warm blanket for large project organizations. Like they want you to be targeting a specific standard. Like frequently it's around things like schedule level of detail, estimate accuracy and precision, even like what kinds of documents should go into your estimates at various phases. Like those are like the big ones in terms of like what organizations are looking for from the AACE. Risk is right there with it though. So if you are doing a risk analysis, they want you to be able to cite chapter and verse of like why you're doing it in this particular way. So we're trying to give them the tools to basically, and you know what, from a benefits perspective, if you want to call it out in dollars and cents, like every moment you spend having to justify your homegrown solution for a program level risk analysis evaporates in a puff of smoke if you've got an RP to back you up, right? So it should take the effort for getting your method approved and across, and also that should take that effort down, and also hopefully eliminate, you know, clever executives trying to come up with their own solutions and saying, well, why don't you try it this way, or why don't you do it this way, or I want to see this, or I want to see that. And like, you're never going to close the door on all of that, but hopefully you can at least curtail it somewhat, you know, if you have something to lean on.
Yeah, it gives you that auditability and traceability as well. You can point back at it and say, this is the precise method that we followed. Why did we follow it? Because it's written down in an RP or a standard.
And, you know, all those RPs are scalable in some way. They all say, here's when you should use it and here's when you shouldn't. And we've done some of that in this paper, but that's one of the areas of future research that needs to be done. It's like, what's the break point for even using this, right? Because the most obvious other alternative is, okay, you know, if you're doing an integrated risk analysis, that means you need a schedule. If you're going to do a schedule for a program, that means you need all of the interconnections between the program or the sub-projects within the program tracked, right? And if you're doing that, why not just build one giant monolithic program schedule? Well, that's the other option for doing this kind of estimation. And it falls on its face only at really, really high levels of complexity when you've got tens of thousands of activities, you know, schedule activities to manage and hang risks on. It doesn't feel great to have to do that for a whole program and then also have to do it for the sub-projects because they're all going to carry their own budgets, right? So like that's basically the problem we were trying to solve. So in principle, from an efficiency and benefits perspective, it also solves the problem of, well, now you have a more accurate estimate, right?
Right.
In principle, if it works the way that we think it does, you know, your program level estimate becomes just as accurate as your project level estimates because it leans on all of those already mature, already battle tested project level RPs for doing risk assessment. It's still, we're not throwing those out. We're basically saying, do that and then subject it to this, and you get, you know, a program level result that is valid, right?
It really changes the conversation. When you talk about feeling, like you said feelings and you know it doesn't feel good, but when y'all are presenting at AACE on June 28th and 29th in Las Vegas, how do you want the audience to feel or sort of take away? What is that?
Curiosity.
What's the impact that you want and the reaction?
Yeah, Roger nailed it.
Curiosity. We want people to go away, I'm not saying questioning the process, but certainly thinking about it, wanting to ask questions, wanting to follow up, wanting to get involved in trying to, you know, make this the thing it could be.
Wanting to prove you wrong, maybe?
You know what? If they do, so be it.
So be it, right? Because then it just improves the whole community.
Yeah. So
exactly.
Whether we're right or wrong, what we can say is we've started the conversation. And by starting the conversation and trying to get people to think about this in a structured format means that sooner or later, preferably sooner, there's going to be an answer to this. Great if it's our one. equally great if it's somebody else's that works better.
Yeah, and that's the main thing here is like we're contributing to a pretty mature subject matter within the AACE in risk assessment, right? It's not like, you know, we were the first two people ever to use Safran Risk before. Like, we're not. You know, that's the reason why there was a Safran Summit. So lots of users, like just in Toronto, there were like over 50 people who showed up to hear people like myself talk about how they use Safran Risk. That's just in Toronto, right? So, you know, every city in North America is going to have a similar community of folks who are risk literate, right? And who want to know what the state of the art looks like so that they can develop good estimates for their projects and programs. And they'll get, you know, and to Roger's point, if we get proved wrong because somebody came up with a better method, like, awesome. Like, that's part of the goal here, you know?
If I'm managing a multi-project program, right? And curiosity is what we want that response to. Like, what's the question that I should be asking?
Who are these guys and how can we get them into our office?
Yeah. I mean, look, you know, I mentioned earlier that like we're trying to contribute to the discourse, and that's the main reason for doing this, and that is true. Okay, but you know, we also are like it's good to be amongst the first people to tackle a problem like this one, or at least in a structured way, because we want to put a little bit of name recognition and exposure out there. Of course we do. Like, we're interested in being seen as thought leaders in this space. So if somebody does show up and say, hey, your thing sucks and here's a better way of doing it, then we want to contribute to that. Because like we know enough, you know, we're not Johnny come latelys in the risk space. Okay. We know our stuff. So if this other person comes forward and says, here's a better way, in very much the same way that we didn't think of the things that they thought of, I bet there's stuff that they didn't think of that we did, right? So that doesn't mean that now there's, you know, we're not doing like Newton and Leibniz, like, you know, sniping at each other from across Europe about, you know, who's got the better calculus.
That was a great reference, by the way. I don't know, like not many people are going to get that, but
did that make me sound very smart and well read? Because that was
great.
That was,
but my interruption probably just ruined it for everyone. But I love that.
May have done. Roger had an alternative
I was going to
analogy.
go with dueling banjos, but apparently that wasn't as good.
Yeah, well
that's
okay,
also good though.
Yeah, same level of erudite sophistication. You know, dueling banjos, Newton, Leibniz, whose name I'm probably mispronouncing, but anyway,
that's about right.
The point is that we're not trying to set up some kind of rivalry. We want to collaborate with that person.
Yeah.
Right? So we've published a paper. This person has lots and lots of thoughts about it. Like, that person becomes a co-author on the RP. It's that simple, right? Like, you know, we want to invite that conversation. But if you're thinking about, like, as an owner of a program budget, what kind of question would you ask after seeing this presentation? The question I'm hoping people ask is why, right? Why do it this way, right? Well, because on its face, it looks pretty complicated. All right. I'm not going to get into too much of the details here, but like, you know, I do think that we should spend a little bit of time talking about the stochastic rollup, because that's pretty cool. And, you know, it's something that Roger can riff on for probably the next 3 or 4 hours if we let him.
Do you want to get into it right now? Like, maybe we can, like, Roger, can you describe that a little bit?
I don't want to, again, without going into the real detail of this, one thing I will say is that one of my roles in this was as a guinea pig. So within building the paper, Rachel and Albert had obviously already had a large number of conversations about how they thought this could be resolved, how they thought they could, you know, this problem could be tackled and challenged.
They got to whack you with sticks.
Well, no, that as well, but different subject. But so, you know, we need to build this model. We need to come up with something so we can try out the theory and try out the methodology and see if we can make it work. So, you know, many days of playing in P6 and an equally large number of days of playing in Safran, we came to some conclusions. We worked some things out. But partway through that, one of the interesting things was me sitting down and having a bit of an aha moment of, you know, actually, if you set this all up correctly, it's potentially less work than the viable alternative. And the viable alternative Albert's already hinted at, which is, you end up with the 100,000 activity schedule that is the combined effort of 10 different subcontractors, plus your own forces, plus budgets from here, there, and everywhere, trying to build a glorious Monte Carlo simulation that, yes, we have the compute power for, but chances are you haven't made a critical error in it somewhere pretty damn high. The stochastic rollup actually led us to a place where we are building sub-projects in a way that we can then put them into a larger model to get a valid output. And as I said, done correctly with the right oversight and the right guidance in place, this actually becomes, at least not only on paper but in my personal experience of building these models, a far easier way to get to an almost identical answer.
I like easier. That's music to a lot of people.
Most people
Easy's
do.
good.
Yeah.
Efficiency, also good.
Killing two birds with one stone. Theoretically, I mean, people use that
One
to
in
mean
the
something
hand
that's
versus two in the bush.
Sure.
I don't-
Sure.
It doesn't make sense.
Killing many birds being a positive thing has always been slightly mysterious to me.
Albert, was that a pretty good description
Yeah.
of what you're? I mean, I'm not even that. There's no I run marketing and brand at Stochastic, but that sounds interesting to me.
And you drive submarines.
That sounds interesting because I'm hearing sort of a data visualization that I can sort of rely on. But it sounds interesting to me.
And I think that for some, because you talk about your own knowledge and capabilities in this space if you don't have any, but you do, right? Like you've been hanging out with us for long enough now.
What do we have?
Right?
You
understand
a century of experience between the three of us? Mostly Roger. Yeah, exactly.
I take half of that.
Oh dear. So but you aren't a risk practitioner.
I've come
and you
a long
still
way
kind of
from
get, I see why this could be a thing, right? Yeah, still a favorite word. I use that word in the meeting earlier. I was thinking of you the whole time.
All the time. Can you pass me the fragnets?
No.
I mean, the salt.
Down in Fragnet Rock.
I should add
anyway,
sound.
I want to talk a
sound
little.
effects
Yeah,
to this.
I'm so sorry about that. You really shouldn't. I really hope that you won't.
Yeah.
That'd be a total fragnet.
Oh God.
But Albert,
don't
that
feed the
was
beast,
a pretty
Roger,
good
but anyway.
explanation.
It was a pretty good. I just want to add one thing to it because I think it's the really cool thing. Okay, so we've been talking about a stochastic rollup as if it's clear on its face what that means. Okay, but it's what I was talking about earlier of taking all of the risk impacted estimates and adding them together. Like what we've basically done is say take. Assuming that you've got a bunch of different sub projects that are all doing risk in their own, theoretically appropriate ways. You need to find a way, or we were trying to find a way of taking those outputs and treating them as inputs into the program level risk analysis. So you don't have to throw them in the garbage. You don't have to do the whole thing over again. And you don't wind up with two separate sets of outputs where one is for the program and one is for the projects. Like you basically have one unified model that's been constructed as like a set of steps, like of controlled steps, right? So the cool thing was finding a way to do that, right? And Roger ended up building a risk model that, we were talking about having plenty of compute power for this sort of thing. It put some stressors on pretty heavy duty computer.
Really?
Right?
I mean, we're talking 10,000 lines, that's a lot of data.
Yeah, we shrank it down from that, but the challenge. The challenge typically with doing this sort of modeling is the more random variables you throw into the program, the more complicated and the more problematic it becomes. The number of activities if none of them have variation on them, it's very simple to compute. But if every single line has estimate uncertainty and then that's overlaid on top of specific risks, which is overlaid on top of other risks, the more complexity you build in,
it's quantum
the more
computer time.
you need. Even if you only have a relatively on paper small model, if you have enough risk packed into it and enough variance packed into it, your compute time goes from, oh, I can run, this very simple model and get an output in 5 minutes to, well, I'll be back in an hour and a half, and I hope it's done and not crashed.
We're asking a lot of the current state of the art, like the current level of technology and the current, computing power available to your average everyday risk analyst, right? We're pretty well topping that out, right?
Right.
But
right.
we're not overtopping it. You know what I mean? Like it's still scaled to fit within the boundary lines of your typical risk practice. And that's something that I think is a novel contribution. And plus, like, I've been growing some salesperson energy over the last few years. So I'm going to say, like, you get
Pitch
multiple
man over here.
I know, right? Yeah. We've been
I'm the
spending
flavor
too
of
much time
Dokanish,
together.
and I'm happy to see you become a bit of your sales.
Right. I'm looking at you, so I know the time, right? That's okay.
Yeah, exactly. So Albert, you were saying, like, so you're a little bit of sales.
It solves it. The thing I like about this framework the most, right, isn't the fancy maths. The fancy maths are cool, okay, but you get multiple things that your program should be doing anyway that will be beneficial to the program, all packed in to one framework. Like it mandates, or I should say, it works best and assumes the existence of a program level, like a thick layer of management at the program level, like a steering committee, a risk practitioner who sits at the program level, who owns risk at the program level. It requires the existence of a budget that is managed at the program level. So you need thick management, right? Like you can't just have the program exist on paper. It needs to actually have a management layer attached to it. Whether that's the PMO or something else, like that's down to the organization. But in order for this framework to work, you have to have all those things in place. So that's one thing that I really like about it. Another is that by virtue of building the stochastic rollup method, I'm falling into the same trap as Roger was really like. So in order to build the stochastic rollup, you actually have to build summary schedules, right? Like that's how it works. Now, summary schedules are, like I mentioned earlier, a little bit of a hot topic in the risk community. Like, is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? Can you avoid it? Like, why do it? Like all that stuff. Like it's active source of discussion and debate, and that's fine. But whether you are doing it for risk purposes or other purposes, you're probably going to have to develop a summary schedule for your program at some point, right? So why? Because 10,000 activities don't present very well on a monthly report, right? So it winds up getting rolled up aggressively to the point where a lot of the detail about how the work is actually flowing, right, from project to project and even within projects, it gets destroyed, right? Like it becomes hard to see at the program level. So, I've been working on some other tooling that solves this problem in different ways, but like if you build a roll-up schedule for, to be in compliance with this proposed framework that we developed, you get a pretty good summary schedule that also includes your cost, by the way, like just as part of the package, right? So I envision programs using that as a cornerstone of their monthly reporting because they've already got it, right? Like they had to go through all the effort of developing it. And like, how did it get developed, you may ask? Well, that brings me to the third thing that I really love about it, which is that it forces you to think about connectivity between your projects, right? Like what do they share? Like is one project developing land that is then utilized by another project? Are there shared labor resources? Are there shared pieces of like procurement or engineering or whatever? Like what's actually being shared amongst your program? You have to think about those things so that you can develop the linkages between the projects and seed the risk model with data.
If I'm curious about, all of these things and experimenting, like where do I start?
Weirdly, you should start in Las Vegas. Why? Because that's where the expo is. So Roger and I, and of course, Rachel, we will all be presenting our paper, Risk 4852, Contingency Management Framework for Multi-Project Programs, at this year's AACE Conference and Expo. And that is happening June 28th through the 30th at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Our paper specifically is being presented on the morning of the 30th, so don't leave early. Okay, you got to come see us. You got to talk to us about it.
And we'll also be presenting the paper at the Safran Expo in Las Vegas the day after the AACE conference is completed.
Excellent. Well, Roger, thank you for being our first guest
Well,
on our podcast.
thank you for having me. Hopefully the next one will be more entertaining. Guest, I mean, not possibly not podcast.
Goodness. Roger, I can't thank you enough for all of the kind things you've said about the show on the show.
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
It's been really helpful. Like, I mean, frankly, listener, if you've gotten this far in the episode,
You've done well.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks,
You are a
Albert.
hero.
Thanks, Roger.
Hey, look, you can cut whatever you want.
All right. See you next time.
Thanks, Nate. Hey everybody, it's Albert here. Thanks for tuning in to the Risky Planner podcast. We hope today's conversation was informative and above all else inspires you to excellence in what you do. If you liked today's episode, don't forget to rate, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps us reach more listeners just like you. I'd also like to thank Thompson Igbo for letting us use his excellent music on our show. If you like what you hear, check him out at igbomusic.com. That's EGBO music.com. Talk at you later.
See you next time. Okay.
You already said that. You
I
didn't
know,
need to
but
say it again.
I just wanted a second one so that if one with Roger's like saying,
No.
'Cause I like
what we're
that.
doing right now, we're recording the thing that goes after the credits now.
Yeah,
like this
exactly.
is the part where like, why did you say?
you know,
see
my
you
son
next
and
time?
I,
Is
you know,
this next
Punch
time?
Buggy, you know, the Punch Buggy game, you know,
Yeah, I do know the Punch Buggy game.
My family, my kids, we started a cyber truck game. It's called Cyber Slap, no slapbacks.
Cyber slap is pretty good. Where does the slap go though? You slapping him across the face?
Well, I mean, yeah.